Nigel Farage revealed that his bank account had been abruptly closed and he'd been refused an account by several other banks. He drew attention to an issue that has affected quite a number of people throughout the UK, apparently. And one of them has joined me in the studio now. She's Alexandra Tolstoy, a single mother of three who runs an adventure travel company. Now, her account with NatWest was shut with 2 months' notice, and she still hasn't got all of her money from that account back, and she's still not had a full explanation from the bank of why that decision was made. And Alexandra joins me in the studio now. Alexandra, I've read all of the correspondence that you've had, not only with the bank, but also with another company as well, with a company that was apparently doing the research into you. It struck me that it was not only just a bit frightening, but also quite sinister. How have you coped? How have you coped not having a bank account and at some point not having any money?
Yeah, I feel like it's a sort of Orwellian nightmare because it is equivalent to being in the Soviet Union. I was accused of something which carries a very, very heavy sentence with it.
We should say that that's being accused of being a politically exposed person.
Yeah, so
and the banks are worried about that because
but the bank didn't tell me that.
No, but a bank.
Yeah.
But when they call you a PEP, it means that they're afraid that you may be subject to money laundering, or that indeed you could be subject to bribery.
Exactly. So for me, the bank refused to give me... They wrote this awful thing, we will not even speak to you. And I was terrified. I'm on my own, I didn't sleep, I'm just hysterical, because you cannot operate. We live in a digital world, you cannot operate without a bank account. I was trying to think, my cousin was saying, you can use my account. I can't, because that really would be money laundering. I've managed to open an online account, but I'm very scared because what I've discovered is that the same data company provides data to all banks. And I fought and fought and fought. And then, funnily enough, when I'd done my first bit of publicity, one of the data companies I'd applied to, you can apply for an access request, suddenly responded. And this, to me, was shocking. Their results are based on 3 Daily Mail articles and 1 Russian article. I live in Monaco, and I'm married to the father of my children.
Who is Russian? Who
is Russian. Not sanctioned, by the way, but... Both of them, I wrote back immediately, I went, this is insane. You can check the electoral roll, you can check my HMO.
You don't live in Monaco, you live in London.
I live in Wandsworth. I have visited Monaco maybe 3 times. I never lived there, never been written that I lived there, just that I'd been there. And it's extremely public information that the father of my children left the UK in 2015. He's never sent me a payment. And NatWest and I wrote to the data company and I said, this is completely untrue. And they said, OK, fine, we'll remove it. And I said, you can so likely literally destroy my life. And 5 million other people, by the way. There are 5 million people on this World Check data list who don't know anything about it. I was lucky that through the sort of through the media, I was able to get access, I feel. I think they would have ignored me otherwise. And I've been able to write it, but just so lightly and casually, with the most flimsy of... You know, my children could research better than that.
Yeah, I mean, we should say, I mean, immediately I say the name Tolstoy, immediately people will remember that, of course, one of your ancestors wrote War and Peace, that Nikolai Tolstoy, who's your father, isn't he? He is someone who is a historian and also has worked in politics. And the father of your 3 children is Sergei Pugachev, who is a very close friend of Putin.
Well, very publicly that he's
very
not.
Publicly.
No, but he's not a friend.
But also an oligarch, said to be an oligarch. That with all of that kind of background, were you surprised that they actually took all of that kind of information and used it against you?
Yes, I was, because I've had an account with NatWest since 2016, which is after Sergei left the UK. I have said to the bank, go through my transactions, prove to me that Sergei has not made 1 payment for maintenance of our children. Never, never, never. And they can't find... There's no transaction they could find. So all my transactions are completely transparent. I run my work through 2 companies on Companies House. I pay my taxes. I use an accountant. It is totally transparent, but they didn't bother. And I wrote, I said, I have 3 children who 100% depend on me. You're really, really impacting on a lot of lives here. And they just said, we don't care, we won't discuss it.
Yeah.
And then said, we'll send you a cheque in the post with your remaining money with us.
Which is £12,000, as I understand
Yes, and it may be in 60 days. And I said, well, what if I don't have a new bank account? How do I cash this cheque? What do I do?
But you have got a new bank account.
Well, I have got this online.
So what has happened now?
So now I have this online account, but I live in absolute fear that I will get a letter through the door saying, you can't bank with us. And then... what do you do in this day and age? And I mean, I'm smiling about it now, but I have cried, really, really anxious. Wouldn't be able to run my business. How do I bring up my children? And
As I understand it, the government needs to make an intervention here. What chance do you think there is of people like you and others like you, as you say, 5,000 on a similar register?
5 million.
5 million?
5 million.
On a similar register.
So it's this horrific company called World Check, and they have this partisan called Refinitiv, who, accumulate data. And honestly, my 14-year-old son could do a far better job. They don't look at HMRC records. They don't look at the electoral roll. They don't look at any official court documents. They just Google and put together something. What
would you like the government to do to actually protect people like you and the 5 million others that you say are on this
Well,
list?
I think World Check should immediately have a massive fine. I want to sue for compensation. It's ruined my life for many months now. And I think that they should be heavily checked. You can't just accumulate. It's like saying, oh, you committed murder, but I'm going to provide no evidence, and the evidence I do provide is just something I read on the internet. I mean, that's...
But this is a company that was supposedly looking into your background. As I understand it, the bank themselves say they've followed the rules. They've absolutely no necessary to explain why we have got rid of you. And on this basis, we will not meet or talk with you.
So arrogant.
So, I mean, was that the first indication you had that actually you were on your own in this?
Yes, and I only got that far because some person kindly advised me to write to the CEO, this woman, Alison Rose. Otherwise, I was trying to... I had a manager before they threw me out who was always calling me saying, oh, do you want to buy this? Do you want to put your money in here? The moment I got the letter, I called her, I emailed her, I texted her. She just refused to answer my calls. So you feel it's absolutely terrifying. And there are a lot of people out there who are not as lucky as me and can't speak in public. It is just terrifying.
So what advice would you give to people who find themselves in a similar position? I mean, Nigel Farage is one. There are many others now that are becoming public, and indeed yourself.
I would advise them to do this data access request, which everybody has the legal right to do. It's just a formulaic document which you can send to the bank, to all these data companies. And as I have proved, you get this data, and most of it's... Well, mine was all false. I just said, that's false, and they said, OK, fine, we'll delete it.
So, in other words, if you're able to track down information that is incorrect about you, you can have it removed and changed?
Yes, but the crazy thing was, in the same absolutely light, casual way they slandered me, in the same absolutely easy way, they removed it. I mean...
Do you feel safe now or not?
No, I don't feel safe, and I do feel... I feel terrified, because my children are so dependent on me, and how do I... and I feel my work is going abroad, and when I was abroad, I was so frightened because my money was just sitting in NatWest, and they closed my... I didn't know what to do because I couldn't contact them or...
So what will you do if even the next bank that you go to and the one that you are with at the moment online suddenly says you are a PEP? So
what I'm doing now is I've been advised by a lawyer. Some incredibly kind people have popped out of the woodwork and helped me for free. A lawyer told me, you go, and now I have to go. It's a lot of work to every single data company, send this request in, cancel all the rubbish that they've got on me. But it's a lot of work, and I don't know, maybe the data company in 1 year will suddenly amend their record or change things. But I hope, I would like to support all these people trying to change the law. They shouldn't use these data companies. They should be using proper researchers. And, of course, if someone's money laundering, they shouldn't. But, there's no way that I am money laundering.
But basically what you're saying is that the bank made a decision on you and your account without actually double-checking whether or not the information they were given was accurate.
Exactly. So they sent letters to my address in London, but they believed I lived in Monaco, and they said that my spouse was the father of my children.
To whom you were never married.
And they could have just tracked... It's so easy to track my incoming payments. Not one of them ever came from him or any company, any foreign company or anything.
Alexandra, thank you very much indeed for sharing your story with us, as you say.